Hi guys. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I just it's so weird, almost addictive to talk about this topic, and it had dawned on me kind of that perhaps there needs to be a recognition of people that have the arrow pointed in one direction, and let them be. Realize that this is a kind of a tribal line in the stand, and maybe block or separate and stop the trade. One group centers in one way, and the other group move in the other way, and part. Both groups can have a logic. There's a logic that promotes childbirth rationally and logically. There's the benatarian logic, which is if one wants to adhere to it, it will fulfill the desires of those who want to cling to that logic. The predominance or claim, or who has the last word or the last claim of truth, is an absurdity. It can keep being approached, and I guess that's why I decided to make another video and ramble a bit, because I was thinking once again about this notion of the inherent. The conversation with Trick comes down to me wanting to note the cardinal or stasis or static circling or outline of ethics. Deconstruct the ethics, any ethical claim. If it's static, move it into a verbose operation. If it's in a verbose operation, move it into a static operation. An example of this has to do with the notion of verbs and nouns, and so Trick is continually trying to point to the pain is bad, and then we split metaphors here. Right now, I'm not opposed to having that in my repertoire of use. I've learned it. I understand it. I know it. But I don't. I'm not cardinal to it, and by being cardinal, I mean I'm mutable, meaning it's changeable. Kind of like, for example, I say pain is like a car, and the paint red is like pain, is like bad. And then I suggest that when somebody look at that metaphor, that and they think about their car, do they think about their red car, or do they just think about their car? Like, if I have to go to the store, do I think I need to go down and get into my red car and drive to the store, or do I just think I need to go to the store and I facilitate it without thinking about getting into the car, which happens to be red? And sometimes it's nighttime, like the car's not red, the bad isn't there at all. The car's still there, but the color isn't there. Now Trick, he didn't like that metaphor. He wanted to say, no, pain is inherent to the word bad. Wants to make certain that we focus very specifically on that use, and let's just make a parenthetical exception or exclusion to all other uses so that we can focus on a singular use of the word bad as a value, because I use it in terms of layers. Like, we don't have to lay that adjective. There's no requirement to lay an adjective over the word pain, right? But he wants to use bad as noun, as state, and talk about the state of pain, right? So his metaphor is like fire. Fire is inherently hot. And I'm thinking, okay, how do we talk about, first of all, does it make sense to ever speak of fire without implying heat? Before, someone may have ever walked to fire, prior to testing one's hand in fire, the notion of its inherent heat was not in place. Then people play with fire. They stick their hand in it. They light themselves on fire. They light things on fire. They walk on fire. They put it in their mouth, their tongue. They dabble with fire. Now, you can paint images of fire, see fire. Are you ever numb to the idea of fire not being hot? Now, I think then, I say, well, yes, you can think of fire without thinking of heat. It's kind of like this, kind of like, is the number 5, when you think of the number 5, is the number 5 inherently 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2? Is that inherent with 5? Now, if you say yes, it is, then every time you think of 5, do you automatically think 3 plus 2? And if you say yes, then I say, do you automatically, is it inherent when you think about 5, do you automatically and always think about the square root of 25? Do you always think about minus 6 plus, or do you ever think of minus 6 plus 11? Like, is that inherent in 5? Are all operations inherent in everything? Now, this is what I mean by the outline, right? Now, I call this is the difference between what is kind of ontological, the notion of a glove or a niche, or the things that I accuse Anton of being guilty of, right? That the universe is not a glove from which our being manifesting is fitting in, and yet he approaches it as if it's a negative number, right? As if it's on that line. Now, this seems to be something in our argumentation. We outline something and we want to call it a stasis, a static, and that's what Trick's doing. He's trying to say, now we want to say it's inherent in pain to be bad. There's no way to think about it as a layer. There's no way to think about that sensation without always applying bad. And I say we learn it as a stasis, as a process, as an operation, but you don't have to apply the operation. And then I make comparison to, it's kind of like pain as bad is like a bicycle with training wheels. Or it's like thinking about going to the store where you use the car. Pretty soon you take off the training wheels, right? But then in order to fulfill a primacy of logic, you have people that are insisting that you must place on the training wheels again, onto the bike. You must focus on it, and then you must consider or outline it in a stasis, a deontological stasis. Now, this is an episteme, right? An episteme of stasis, a static notion. And I call that the nowness. And I say, well, we always have this nowness operation that points to a verbus, and then we shift it at our convenience, and we reapply these operations. Now, this is so obvious to me that this is a mutable thing, and it goes on when one is picking and choosing a certain stasis. But what I think is happening, kind of like in the What Dreams May Come, where Robin Williams has to descend and he finds his depressed, so broken, suicide wife, and he's trying to bring her up to the world. But if that is the antinatalist, like, ultimate commanding, downward pointing, stay down, stay down, stay down, and they're cardinal to that lock, where they're not mutable enough to move away from the stasis of operation, to look at it as a layered process where bad is somehow my this hand, and this is pain, and that you can apply them in an operation, but you don't have to apply them. Now, I say this because I say I suffer, but I don't say the suffering is bad. Now, and then it questions then a mutability of saying what is bad, and I think a bad, like a wish away, and yet I can't find any definition of bad that says a wish away. I'm just looking at, like, that's how I look at it. Like, well, I would wish that away. But then sometimes it's on me, apparently, but I don't see it. I only see it when it's absent. And then I realize, oh, it was there. I just didn't know that I was in pain until I realize the pain is gone, right? And then somehow, in retrospect, I lay a verbal casting over a memory and call that bad, where prior to that casting it wasn't the case. And so that's where I'm stuck. And I sit there and I think of the antinatalists. I just watched Slock of God and so forth, and I thought they will recycle. He ended a video pointing to his brother and his family smiling, and then had pointed to like an Oprah video, and talked about this meltdown, right? And it's like, we're sentient, we will suffer, we will die, but I don't think it's an imposition. It's not like the atmosphere increased in pressure and it is imposing on us. It is a creation. We know what it is, right? And a manifestation. And then looking at it in terms of how it fits how we are into the universe is a whole other philosophy, I suppose. I guess what I want to say in this video, is that, it's people are okay if they don't want to have kids. But if people want to have kids, then have kids. There's a logic for it. It makes sense. I'm just going to read this real quick, and then hopefully I'll come up with some finishing thoughts on mutability and cardinality. And the cardinality are people's claims of what truth is, to say the world is a shithole or a rat's nest or whatnot. That's an outline cardinal nounist approach to say this is that, and make that metaphor, and then outline it and make it static and make it immutable, and say that's the premise we're starting with. And really it comes down to, can you change your mood and your mind? If you cannot, then you are in that position. And how is being in that position not a dogmatic reiteration? I've done my best to try to break down Gary's quad. I wish people would look at the videos and look at the notion of deprivation and Benatar's third premise as not applying nicely. And here's a quick one I'm going to read that I thought was nice. Someone sent me. It's premise 1: the absence of pain is not good if no one exists who was prevented from having this pain. That is absent. If a child doesn't come into existence, then the child doesn't exist. If the child doesn't exist, then the child was not prevented from having pain. This is not a good according to premise 1. Ergo, not having children is not good. I'll put it in the down bar, the link below, Thanks.